Hi Founder fans, Jason here, and today's founder is Fleury Mesplet, the Frenchman who went to Canada to print propaganda for the American revolutionaries. Now, first of all, he's French. I believe his name is pronounced Mesplet. It might be Mesplet. Let me know in the comments if I'm doing it wrong, but Mesplet was born in France, and he grew up and started a printing company. He was not very successful in France, and he decided to move on. Now, I will say he did have Republican values and was a very big fan of Voltaire. He then goes to London, where he starts another printing press, this time printing in French in London, which made more sense at the time than it sounds. During this time, he meets a man named Benjamin Franklin, and they become friends. Now, I'll remind you, Franklin's in France in 1774 when the First Continental Congress meets without him. But he does realize, hey, a guy who can print in French might be really helpful to the city of Philadelphia and the Continental Congress. So he sends Mesplet over to Philadelphia with a letter of introduction. And well, the Continental Congress could use a guy who wrote in French. And in fact, the Continental Congress would write 3 letters to the inhabitants of Canada, each printed in French, distributed in Quebec and Montreal and the larger province of Quebec, trying to convince the French to join the American side. And the first person they chose to print these articles, well, the first of the 3 letters was Mesplet. He printed them in French. They were sent up and distributed around Canada. Now, side note here, just inviting the Catholic Canadians to join as the 14th state in rebellion was a big deal. First of all, most of the colonies were unhappy that the Quebec Act, one of the intolerable acts, permitted Canada to keep its French common laws. Additionally, New England, Puritan, still pretty Puritan New England, was not happy that they were allowed to be Catholic. However, by the time of the First Continental Congress and the Second Continental Congress, when they write these letters to Canada, well, these attitudes are starting to change, and it was a very big step, especially New England accepting Catholicism up there, towards the freedom of religion that we would now enjoy in the United States. Now, this didn't work. Canada did not join immediately, but the Americans did invade Canada pretty quickly. And they decide, hey, you know what we should do? We should send a delegation up there to talk to the Canadians and see if we can get them on our side. And the delegation immediately recommended, why don't we send Mesplet up there to start a printing press in French? Mesplet was all about this. He was very happy to be in a place that spoke his native language where he could publish to the general public and not just the very few French speakers in Philadelphia. Now, he goes up there with a team of 5 people and a bunch of carts and oxen pulling all his stuff, gets up there just in time for the evacuation of Canada. Now, I will say the delegation themselves do go up there. It consists of Benjamin Franklin, who at this point has returned to the United States and joined the cause, Samuel Chase of Maryland, and Charles Carroll of Carrollton, the 3 of whom would pretty soon after they returned sign the Declaration of Independence, and Charles's cousin John Carroll, who at this point was a Catholic as well as Charles. Maryland had a fairly decent Catholic population, and later on after the Revolution, John Carroll would actually be the first archbishop in American history. So they thought sending some Catholics up might help. It didn't, because by this point, as I said, the Americans are in retreat. The delegation only stays there a few weeks before they bail, go back and sign the Declaration. Most of them, except John Carroll, was not invited to that particular party. His cousin Charles was, though. It wasn't a Catholic thing. Either way, Mesplet decides to stay in Canada. And he continues printing propaganda for the Americans. And as the British Army arrives, they're not happy about this, and they throw him in jail for a month. And then they say, okay, we're going to let you out. You can go print in French. That's fine. Don't print any more propaganda. And he immediately starts printing more propaganda, to which they say, now you're really going to jail. And he spends 3 years in prison for printing pro-American Revolution propaganda in French Canada under British occupation at the time. Well, eventually he gets out. Eventually, he keeps to himself. He kind of stops printing propaganda at that point. The American Revolution ends, and Mesplet actually begins another printing press, and he starts printing a paper called the Montreal Gazette, which was the first newspaper ever printed in Montreal, and actually is still printed in Montreal to this day. So although this channel is generally about American founders, it's arguable that Mesplet was actually more of a Canadian founder, especially in the journalism industry. So There you go. That is a brief overview of the life of Fleury Mesplet, the Frenchman who went to Canada to print propaganda for the American Revolution. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and hit like so more people can learn about us and learn along with us. And if you're new here, hit subscribe because I put out videos about the American Revolution 7 days a week. I'll be back with another founder for you tomorrow.